talk platform.
Today, what we're discussing, later on, we'll have a financial advisor join us to help us to talk about how we can navigate our way through this financial crisis. Mind you, Christmas, yes, after Christmas, things in the pockets, money starts to dwindle a little bit. How do we navigate our way through the financial crisis? So that will be later on the show. And of course, 48 head of states from the continent of Africa went to the US. What did they talk about? Well, the president of Ghana urged African leaders to stop being beggars so that the continent can also be respected. Now we're asking, how realistic is this? But now we begin with what we're going to discuss here with my guest. Have you been in a situation, whether in a workplace or just out and about, and certain things have happened which made you feel really, really uncomfortable as a Black person? And you wanted to voice your concerns. But the moment you do so, you're being told that you're playing the race card. So we're asking, has playing the race card enabled racism? Or are we just too quick to say that, hey, what you're doing is racist? Okay, are we hypersensitive? That is the question we're asking here. And joining us to discuss this, we have Abena Serwaa. Abena Serwaa is a journalist and also the editor of Academy magazine. Thank you very much for joining us, Abena.
Thank you.
And also Kofi Ali. Kofi Ali is no stranger to the show. Thank you for coming on the show. Kofi Ali is a ECOWAS citizens' rights advocate. Thank you for coming on the show, Kofi.
Thank you very much.
Is your debut here? Oh, well, I know that you've been on the show a lot of the time in the past, but it's your first time here. Also, it's your first time here.
It is.
Okay. Now, let's proceed, and I'll come to you first. This thing about playing the race card. And the reason why we're talking about this is because recently there's been an issue in the media, which has sparked a lot of conversation. We talk about Meghan, dare I say her name. I know that some people really, really don't, right? So we talk about Meghan, and there are some people too who sympathize and also support her. We talk about Meghan. And we've had Jeremy Clarkson also made a few comments. The moment you read comments on social media, everybody voices out their opinion. And the moment you try to bring the racial element to it, oh, here we go, pulling up the race card again. Which, in a sense, it's almost as if you have concerns, you have issues as a Black person, voicing out your opinion, it's almost like you're being told to just keep quiet.
That's exactly what it is. I feel like it is an opportunity for people to exploit the situation. And I mean, with those particular examples that you talked about, that was my experience. So when I shared my opinion about it, what I got in response from lots of people was, I'm throwing the racial element into it when it doesn't need to be, discussed at all. But I think, the framing of using the race card, already it's weighted. It's already got a certain undertone, so you're almost boxed into a corner. You can't be fair and speak fairly about your experience because the people already have an opinion when they use that word, race card.
But can you actually, before I come to you, Kofi, can you actually, can it be a situation where it's being overused?
What I would say is, in most of our experiences, if you're melanated and you may have had experience of racism, we don't go around explaining every single incident that happens to us because we have to survive. It's really dangerous. So I almost feel like it's possibly underreported because we're not always talking about it. And when we do talk about it, usually we're we're silenced. So I don't know that I'd agree that it's over sort of reported. What I would say is there was an article in The Guardian from 2021, and in that they were specifically just looking at schools. Mm-hmm. They actually showed that there was about 60,000 incidents reported of racism. But because the government basically has said that you don't have to report it, there's no desire or there's no impetus for people to have to do it. So you're relying on people voluntarily sharing that information. That's just in schools. So that would suggest that there's possibly more that's not reported. So if we're not talking about every single incident, how can we say that it's underreported?
Kofi, do you think, black people in particular are quick to pull up the race card if things don't go their way?
With my experience as an individual, I think my view from Abena's view will be slightly different.
Sure.
Someone who is born and bred in the system, her understanding, her experience will, of course, not be like mine because I am a migrant who came in. And where I come from, my concern is more of discrimination rather than racism.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the issue we are talking about here, if you look at it very well, there is the issue of your personal experience, and there's a law on discrimination. But when it becomes an institutionalized thing, and they tell you, don't talk. Why? Because you are black. Don't talk because you are this. Then that is where we talk about racism.
Okay.
But when it is you flagging up an issue personally where you work, and you are going through the system, or you are dealing with your boss or with people, you feel, I'm suffering here. I think that issue is what I would rather want people to focus on.
Okay.
In the sense that when you talk about Jeremy Clarkson, for example, the issue there is a bit thorny, or the issue of Ngozi Fulani, they are a bit thorny. Let me go to Jeremy Clarkson.
Okay.
Issue.
All right. Okay. Sure.
We have, remember, it has to do with Harry and
Meghan,
who are members of the royal family,
Sure.
but they choose to take a different path. And even there was a place where some people were saying there was a raise of voice between Harry and William. And William is the future king. Can you see? So within the royal family, there is issue. So the sympathizers of the royal family will technically respond, knowing very well that the king will not respond. Can you see? Because Jeremy Clarkson, what he wrote, he didn't say it. When you say things, you can make a mistake by saying things strongly.
Okay,
But when you sit down to write, you'll have read what you wanted to write, and that is what you want.
Okay,
so he's fighting on behalf of the royal family.
I'll come back
That's how
to you.
I
I
see.
think for the sake of our viewers, people who might not be in the know of what's happening or what Jeremy Clarkson said. So Jeremy Clarkson wrote a column in the Sun newspapers. This was again about Meghan, because Meghan and Harry have the new documentary on Netflix, right? And he said one day Harold the Glove Puppet will tell the truth about a woman talking, the colorful word BS, right? Meghan, though, is a different story. I hate her. Not like I hate Nicola Sturgeon or Rose West. I hate her on cellular level. At night, I'm unable to sleep as I lie there grinding my teeth and dreaming of the day when she is made to parade naked through the streets of every town in Britain while the crowds chant shame and throw lumps of excrement at her. You see a problem with this, don't you?
completely. I think it was well out of order. For somebody like me, I haven't watched Game of Thrones, so that suggestion or that metaphor that he was going for just passed me by. But even so, it's very insightful, it's very ugly, and it's very violent, I think.
Yeah. And for me, looking at that, if you look at the history of the British, this English, where we are today, of course, they went through all these things when they despise a person publicly. That's how people are dealt with. Now, bringing it to now, if you look at Meghan, this is where we say sometimes we overhyped the race issue. Her father is a white man, her mother is black. Is she white or is black? So this is where you see.
Well, she identifies as black.
Does she? I don't know how she identifies, but I don't think she will identify. If she does, but it may be the attitude of people towards her. Can you see? Which is all over the place. But what I want to see here is that, you see, since this lady was about to marry the prince, people just took, position on her. Some were playing the black race card, some were playing the white. So even before she came into the picture, they've already formed camps around her. And that, I think, is the biggest problem. To me, I don't think she's supposed to go through this. But things have turned out to be like that. They hate this because her father we saw him. We saw her mother. Her mother is like me.
But
Her father.
Kofi, I just want to ask you, don't you think what she's going through and all this hate speech or statement made towards her has a racial element to it?
I do not think it's done because, to me personally, she's black. I'm sorry to say that. To me, I think, remember, the king cannot talk. The king will not talk. William is quiet. Who is Jeremy Clarkson directly have no problem with these people. But indirectly, the loyalists of the royals are those who are reacting, because the royal family mean a lot to people in this country. There are some people who go to the extreme end that you'll be shocked. And Jeremy Clarkson tend to be one of them. If you are not looking at this,
are you justifying what Jeremy Clarkson said? Because
if you ask me what I told you that to do that to any human being, you see, when we take it to that level, to any human being and say, bring a human being to be subjected to what he's suggesting, even when it used to be the norm in the past, doing it now is abnormal.
Yeah.
Can you see? So we deal with the issue that it is wrong to do that to any human being, whether she's white, green, or yellow.
Yeah.
I think we will do better.
Yeah.
But if you put her on the black box and say, oh, she's black, that's why they are doing it to her, then I think this is where we rope ourselves in.
But my question is, how do you know it's not because she's black that they're doing it? You don't see them treating Kate like that. There's examples where we've had newspapers where they've actually talked about the same thing when they were both pregnant, and the way that the media portrayed both of them was completely different. There was a problem with Meghan holding her stomach, but there was no problem with Kate doing that. So I would like to ask you, how do you know that it's not to do with her colour?
Well, I still want to say, remember, an American even coming in here. It's not a common thing here to have somebody from outside. This lady was not part of their class system.
But neither was Kate. Kate wasn't as well.
Well,
and
so
they gave her a hard time in the beginning. They've given a lot of yeah, they did. And then the press changed, but the press changed. This is 6 years of her having to deal with this, to the point where she feels suicidal. At what point do we say we stop doing it?
Well,
I don't know how you can decide that it's not racist. It's really difficult. I know that this country is fixated with race. So you saw at the wedding, they kept going on about it. So there's a fixation, and it's because I think Britain hasn't got to grips with understanding what racism is. And you mentioned about my experience because I was born here, even though I'm Ghanaian, and you came as a migrant. And I understand that because my parents, growing up, if you have an issue related to race, it's like, keep quiet, just get on with things, because, almost like you don't have the right to speak about them. So I understand that. But we are a different generation that believe that we have the right to express ourselves. And we have to also remember that before our parents came here, it was the Caribbean people that pushed the way for us to get the rights that we have. The rights that we currently have is because people stood up and said something about it. And that's why when our parents came here, they may not have faced the degree of racism that the Windrush generation faced. So we have to be thankful for that. But they had to say something. And that's the difference. We're going to keep quiet and not saying anything because that's our... that's how our parents told us. But I don't know that benefits us in the long run.
Well, and that leads me to my next question, because we're talking about Fulani Ngozi's case with Lady Hussey, because she came out and spoke about her experience with Lady Hussey. And there I go, say it again, people are saying, oh, she's playing the race card.
Well, as I even was discussing with you before the time with Ngozi and Lady Hussey, you see, when I heard the conversation initially, I said, oh, this is not right. Pushing someone and doing this and that and asking them, where do they come from? Honestly, I even was on Twitter and I was really saying, no, it's unacceptable. That's racism, because you're listening to the clip. But when I saw the picture of Ngozi, which people put on Twitter, I even remember sending that to my colleague Jones. And I said, this appearance, because the problem is, if you are born and bred in this country, there are things they expect you to do. There are certain boxes. If you are born in Nigeria, there's a way they expect you. If you are born in Zimbabwe, if you want to go local. But this girl is born here. She probably never been to Nigeria before. Why in that kind of forum that she dressed this way? You see, her dressing then put me aback. I was even asking Jones that, is it the one here? Is it the same as the? And when I called people to come and look at it, everybody said, yes, there is. You will see that. You see, sometimes I think if Diane Abbott, David Lamin come into place, you see them, these ones are born and bred here. But the appearance of Ngozi, it will, if I'm with her, I'll go and ask her, please, where do you come from? Why? Which people are you? Even the queen, I believe, does it, because this lady in question was the godmother of Prince William.
Yeah.
And the queen herself, when she's alive, these are those who advise her. She want to know people from their background.
Yeah.
And sometimes people try to show who they are by the way they dress. Then if you don't know, you ask them.
Persistence in her question. Go on.
I was just going to say, but she didn't ask her. What she did was she touched her hair. She moved her dreads out of the way to look at her name badge. And when she found out what her name is, she didn't communicate with her on that level, like, oh, your name is Ngozi. If she wanted to know what her name was, she didn't have to touch her hair. If she wanted to find out where she was from, there's a way that you do that. If you look at the transcript of how she asked her, it was persistent. She kept saying, I can see that I'm going to have trouble getting it out of you. Yes. Now, that sounds like somebody who's fixed on the sort of impression they have on who they think you are. On the issue of how you dress, I wear lots of different African attire. It doesn't mean that it doesn't place me anywhere. It's something that I wear because I like it. I wear a lot of Ghanaian clothes. That's what I'm wearing at the moment. But the difference between me and Ngozi is her descendants would not know where they were from. Her parents are Caribbean. She's got African heritage, but she completely would not know where she's from. I know. So it makes sense when Lady Hussey kept asking her, she's not going to have an answer for that question. She wanted to know specifically in Africa where she was from. She'll never be able to answer that question.
Ngozi is not from anywhere. Ngozi was born here.
Yes.
I'm coming. You see, if I meet a voodoo priest or I meet a imam,
yeah,
or a doctor, it's the appearance you look at. And if I want, you see the forum where they met. We have brought it to our level. They are in their own social forum. The fact that she touched her, she's a female. The other one too is a female. I want to check your badge.
Yeah, ask me my name.
She doesn't have to.
She does.
When you touch,
if you invite me somewhere, I don't expect to be manhandled. I don't expect you to touch my hair.
They are friends. They've been meeting all these years. And don't forget, this lady in question, if they are not friends, where are they meeting there? They should have invited me too. I'm not invited. They are in the same boat. See, you see, they have the way they do their things. They have the way they do their things. They meet, and that's how they socialize.
If that's the case, then she should have been touching every other person's hair to move the badge.
Maybe nobody else have come to complain. Don't forget.
Remember, she didn't complain.
Don't forget. This one even didn't complain. Yeah, that's what they do. No. See, remember. This particular lady is the advisor. She is with the queen for all these years. So what have they been doing? It's the same thing they've been doing.
So you would think that she'd know how to, sort of comport herself when she meets and receives people.
You see, there are places and forums when you meet in each forum. And even in Ngozi herself, she's saying that this is normal. In a way,
it has become normalized.
But then when you listen to the video, and this one feeling is her right to know, and this one feeling I'm not going to tell you, and the other one feeling no, now we are getting to somewhere. You listen to them, you see that it's a game they play there. But when you bring it to our level, it has get out of. That's what they do. That is why you go there, you see. Why should you go to... Camilla was there.
Yes.
Camilla was in that picture. Camilla was there. So it's a forum.
Well, Ngozi didn't see it as a game. She was actually...
Ngozi came out herself to say on so many occasions that she actually didn't. She said it. That I didn't want to make a case out of it.
Yes, she did.
But then that's re-emphasizing what Abena,
It is some.
Yes.
that because we've been made to keep silent, to
Oh,
be
no.
quiet
Yes,
about
yes,
it,
yes.
you don't feel the need to come out. Let me give you an example, a quick one. This Harvey Weinstein's issue
Yeah.
with women being abused, right? So for so many years, women kept quiet because of how powerful Harvey Weinstein is, and as such, they believed that when it came out, they wouldn't be believed. All right, no one would believe them until the movement, the Me Too movement, started.
Yeah.
To the point where people now felt comfortable and confident to come out. So if we don't talk about these things, then people won't have the confidence to come out to speak about it as well.
Well, that of course. Look, don't forget when we started. There is room when you feel oppressed and when you feel challenged, you should come out and do something. But there's also something. Are we the only people here? There are Asians here.
No.
There are blacks here. I'm
No.
coming. There are Europeans here. There are even people from Eastern Europe who feel and believe they are being discriminated. There are people from the Middle East. But sometimes in our own side, I think the way we come out, it's like we want something different. But what we want is fairness to everyone.
Absolutely.
So let us put it back.
And no one's stopping Asian people and every other people who feel oppressed from speaking. We're speaking for ourselves and we're talking. And I think usually when you find the most oppressed people, when they are given or they fight for their rights, that helps everybody else. I don't think that this is something that we should be discussing. If people who are Asian want to complain, they should do it.
All right. Kofi and Abena, thank you very much for coming in. We're done with this segment. Keep the conversation going. Keep sending your messages, and we will read them out. But now we'll move on. We're moving on swiftly. As I mentioned earlier on, 48 head of states from across the continent of Africa met with the United States president.
So this.
Now, the president of Ghana seized the opportunity to speak to African leaders, to which he said to them, "Listen, it's about time the Africans stop begging
So this
the US
this is a very good.
be respected." He even went as far as using China as an example. Another scenario: the Ghana president felt the need to speak to the US about what's happening on the border of Ghana, the northern border of Ghana, to do with Burkina Faso. According to the president of Ghana, missionaries from Russia have landed on the shores of Burkina Faso. And as such, it is a threat, a security threat to the Fourth Republic, to Ghana, and wants partnership with the US to be able to address this particular phenomenon. Let's take a quick listen to this.
The important efforts on regional security. We're strong partners, including on the UN Security Council, which we greatly value. Partners for democracy and security in West Africa, and we greatly appreciate the peacekeeping contributions that Ghana makes, but also just more broadly, your own leadership for peace, for security, for democracy. Many challenges, but we're grateful to actually be facing them together, and really pleased to have you here this week for the summit. So thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate the time.
So, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. We'll just thank the American government for the invitation to participate in this summit. I think it's a summit that's been long overdue. I believe it's the second. The last time was over 10 years ago. Yeah. Perhaps we should be doing it more. But it's good that it has happened. It gives us an opportunity to talk about many common threats and challenges that we have, which you've identified, and particularly for us to be able to put into relief where we are. Yesterday, I was part of an extremely useful meeting with the people from the Congress to come and talk about security matters. I believe that Madam, you were there, you were part of the meeting. And its significance for us. I think that beyond everything, that is a matter that I want to urge upon. Today, Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. I believe a mine in southern Burkina has been allocated to them as a form of payment for their services. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana. Apart from not accepting the idea of great powers once again making Africa their theater of operation. We have a particular position that you know about over the Ukraine war, where we have been very, very vocal and upfront about condemning the invasion by Russia. And therefore, they're now to have this group at our borders is a matter of some considerable disquiet and concern for us. We really like to have a privileged opportunity to talk about its implications and what we believe ought to be the case. This is what took place with the discussion in the Congress yesterday, which I found very fruitful. And I would like the themes of that discussion should be the themes that we should continue to address. To what?
Also, he spoke about the fact that African leaders, we need to stop begging to be respected. He used China as an example. Look at China now. China is respected. China does not beg to be respected. But the question is, how did China get to the position where China is actually going toe-to-toe with the US? This and much more coming up after the break. We'll be back shortly.
So,